And everyone, I am Joanna Adams, one of the open research team based in the library. So today I'm going to talk to you about the open access agreements that we have with publishers. So first I'll go over just the background to open access, then I'll tell you how the agreements work, the reasons that we have them, and just a bit of a summary at the end. So at the moment, we have agreements with 20 publishers. They offer open access for research and review articles to corresponding authors with an affiliation to the University of Aberdeen. They cover participating journals, so it's not all the journals that you might want to publish with, but there are a lot of them now. And the fees are covered, the open access fees are covered by the institution. So open access is just the research output is made freely available to anyone with an internet connection without charge or any other barriers. And that should be immediately open access on publication under a license that allows sharing and reuse under specific conditions. For example, the Creative Commons CC BY license. If you're not familiar with the Creative Commons licenses, they are a suite of licenses that the author applies to their work to set out the terms of how it can be reused. CC BY is the most liberal license. It allows the end work to be shared, reused, adapted, as long as credit is given to the creator. It must be indicated where changes have been made, and the license should be linked to. If you'd like to share your work and allow it to be reused, but not for commercial purposes, you might want to apply the NC non-commercial license. If you're happy for your work to be shared, but you don't want it to be changed, you can use the ND license, no derivatives. We recommend that you always use the CC BY license as it allows the most sharing and reuse, and that is the license that is usually mandated by funders. Now, there are many benefits to making your research open access, really benefit society as a whole. The more people that see your work, the more engagement they will be able to have with it, and the more impact your research will have. When your work's openly available, it means that practitioners can apply your findings, you'll get higher citation rates, policymakers can access your research, the public will be able to read it, you will be compliant with any grants or referrals that you have, taxpayers get value for money, and researchers in developing countries who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford access can also see it. But as well as that, there are many funders and the REF, which everyone has to comply with really, have got open access requirements. They mandate that your research should be open access under an open license. We have limited funds to pay for open access for everything. So these publisher agreements mean that we can get a lot more open access for our money, and they'll make sure that you also comply with any open access requirements needed. Now, before we go into the agreements, just going to explain how open access publishing works. So there's two routes to open access. You can either publish the final article, we call it the version of record, open access immediately on publication on the publisher's website or platform. And that would be known as gold or diamond open access. You can publish in a subscription journal, which means usually that the final published version of record is only available to members who have a subscription to that journal. But you can deposit the accepted manuscript, which is your peer-reviewed, unformatted manuscript, open access in an institutional repository. And we would call that green open access. Both of these routes are compliant with funder open access requirements. But the publisher agreements allow open access for the final published article in participating journals. But it's important to note that not all journals are covered by the agreements. So, where we don't have money to pay for open access or they're not covered by an agreement, that GNU is quite acceptable. Now, there are different models of journal. We've got a fully open access journal, which means that all of the articles are published open access and the author pays an article processing charge, or APC, to publish. The APC can be anything between £2,000 and £10,000. Then we've got the hybrid model, which is when you have that subscription journal, but the author pays an APC to make selected articles open access. Again, that can be anything between £2,000 and £10,000 to publish. If you can't afford to publish, then you've got the accepted manuscript can be made open access in a repository. This is unaffordable and unsustainable. So new models of publishing and new initiatives are emerging to challenge the current situation. One of them is diamond open access. These are usually society or university presses, like we have AUP at Aberdeen. And that is the same as the fully open access. All of the articles are open access under an open license, but there's no article processing charge. The publisher covers the cost. Now, one of the other things that we're doing is the publisher open access agreements. They're also known as transformative, transitional, or read and publish agreements. So they might have a different name, but they all do much the same thing. And the aim is that we will move away from the traditional subscription model to a fully open access model for all of these journals. Now, the way they work is the library will still pay a subscription or a read fee, but that should be lowered. And then we'll also pay a portion for open access publishing. And that will allow us to make, should allow us to make all of our output in that journal for the year or through the duration of the agreement open access. Now, the agreements do vary between publishers. Some of them will include all of their journals. Some of them only include the hybrid journals and not the fully open access titles. So the reason that we have the publisher agreement is really just to challenge the current publication model. It's not working, it's unsustainable, it's unethical, it's inequitable. So the funders are no longer paying for article processing charges in hybrid journals. So that's where the agreements come in. And we should get more open access and much less administration with the agreements. Now we have agreements with all of the main publishers. So Cambridge, Wiley, Elsevier, Springer, and many more. I haven't listed them all on here, but you'll get a full list on our web pages. Now, as I said, there are differences between the agreements and what they offer. So some of them, like Wiley, Cambridge, Oxford, offer open access in both the hybrid and the fully open access journals. So that's nearly everything that those publishers publish, with the exception of the odd society-owned title or certain imprints. But then some of them, like Elsevier, Springer, Taylor and Francis, they only cover the hybrid journals. Okay, so if you want to publish open access in a Elsevier or Springer journal, you need to pay the article processing charge for that article. And as we said, they can be really quite expensive. So you need to make sure that you have got funds to pay for them. We have got a full list of other agreements on our webpage, and they'll link out to the publisher page so that you can check which titles are covered. So if you're not sure, and you can also just get in touch with us at the Open Research email and ask, and we will help you to check. Now, there are other differences with the agreements. Some of them will offer the CC BY license by default. You don't get a choice. Others will give you a choice of license. Now, we always recommend that you use the CC BY license to give you the maximum reuse of your research. But if you are funded, you must make sure you choose that license. So the agreements which only cover the hybrid journals, for example, your Elsevier Springer, I'll use ExplORe for an example because they've got a couple of really popular titles, Scientific Reports and Nature Communications. If you want to publish in those journals, you must make sure that you have funds. Nature Communications, for example, it's by the time you add VAT, the APC comes to around about £6,000. You will get a 15% discount through our agreement if you are the corresponding author, but you will have to pay the APC. We don't have central funds for that out with our block grants, which are provided by UKRI, Wellcome and the British Heart Foundation to cover their funded research. And even then, the block grants have limited funds. So we ask that you make sure that you have funding before you submit to a journal that charges to publish. Now, the agreements are open to all authors at the University of Aberdeen. You don't have to have research funding. You will be identified by your affiliation, so use your Aberdeen email address wherever possible. And they generally cover research and review articles. Other types like letters, commentaries, book reviews may not be covered. But there are, again, some differences between the publisher, so you can check on our web pages or, again, ask us if you're not sure what's covered. You can also use online tools to check funder open access requirements, if a journal meets your funder requirements. And I've listed some of them here, but I would advise that you use them with caution. The information changes quite quickly and they're not always up to date. But the open research team are quite happy to help you and answer any questions that you might have. Now, even if your articles are open access and available immediately on the publisher website, you should still enter them into PURE. You can email paper accepted and we will help you do that. Whenever you have an article accepted for publication, send a confirmation of acceptance from the publisher and a copy of the unformatted peer-reviewed manuscript, and we will enter that into PURE, making sure that you meet funder ref requirements. You can also add information yourself to PURE, and we would encourage you to do that for your data sets, awards, activities, prizes, that type of thing. If you do add articles, please just drop us an email and we'll check that all the information's there and all of the requirements are met. Now, it's important that you add your research to PURE, not only to increase the visibility of your research, but also to make sure that we know that it's complying with REF and funder open access requirements. And again, just email us at this open research email if you have any questions. If you haven't logged into PURE before, all research postgrads and academic staff have got a PURE account. I've put the link in the slides, which I'll share later. So you just log in here with your university user ID and password, and all of your research information goes into PURE. The full text documents, so your manuscripts or the final version where it's open access, goes into ORA, which is the institutional repository. And then we've got the PURE research portal, which is the public interface where all of the university's research information is displayed. So just to sum up, it's really important that you make your research open access, not just for the benefits to society, but also to make sure that you meet any funder and REF open access requirements. We really encourage you to use these open access agreements because you get open access at no extra cost to you, and it's really easy to use, and make sure that you meet all of your open access requirements. We would encourage you to deposit all of your accepted papers into PURE and ORA. And again, if you have got any questions at all, you're not sure about what the agreements cover, or if you've got funding or anything else, please just get in touch with us for help. Okay, now I will stop recording, and if you have got any questions, you can ask just now, but if you think later, I'm going to share these slides and you'll get our email addresses. Also, we have a lot of information on our website and our account there as well. Just a minute till I stop sharing. And stop recording.